Thank you for bringing me here, everyone that was involved with that. And Carrie, thanks for that really beautiful introduction. It makes me feel really special, and I don't think I can live up to it, but I'll try. Thanks so much. So I'm just going to give you some tastes of blue with lots of beautiful blue images and some film clips, and tell you a little bit about this book. There's no other place to start, really. Unavoidable.
Songs are like tattoos, you know I've been to see before. Crown and anchor me, or let me sail away. Hey, blue.
Blue Mythologies, Reflections on a Color, is a visual, literary, and cultural study of the color blue. Blue Mythologies uncloaks blue as a particularly paradoxical color. The conflicting temperaments of the blues unravel easily. For instance, blue is the purity of the Virgin Mary, yet blue names a movie as obscene. Or blue is the color of eternity, yet blue lips are a sign of approaching death. The yarn of this book takes up many hues of the color, yet its pattern remains faithful to one over and done with thread. Blue is paradoxical. It is self-contradictory, yet true. Here is a blue science fiction mythology that Carrie already referred to. It is a myth that our blood is blue until it is oxygenated. Rather than the physical properties of the light itself, the blue in our veins is an affect, a cognitive characteristic of the eye and brain. Venous blood is not in fact blue, it is deep red. However, the light which is scattered from tissue beneath the vein in the back of your hand passes through the blood on its way to our eye and emerges from the skin in a way that makes it appear blue. The effect has been coined as retinix, a portmanteau word derived from retina and cortex. Retinix theory explains that when looking at blue veins, the eye and the brain are involved in the process of seeing. Edwin Land, the developer of Polaroid, formulated the concept in 1971. Polaroid blues are amongst the most gorgeous blues I know, like those obscene Polaroid blues of fashion art photographer Helmut Newton and Guy Bourdin. Land, the inventor of Polaroid, explains why my blood looks blue and gave us the gift of the Polaroid with its stunning instant cyans. This is the kind of fluke that a connoisseur of blue can smile over. Colette has written, there are connoisseurs of blue, just as there are amateurs of wine vintages. I am trying to be a connoisseur of blue. Here is another blue science fiction mythologies. It is not a myth that all newborn irises look blue. At birth, the infant's unpigmented iris contains many molecular scatterers in a transparent medium. That is why we see a bluish eye when we look into them. Newborn babies' eyes seem blue, not because they are pigmented, but because they scatter blue light to us. Once the pigment arrives, the iris has effectively been painted, and its color is then determined by the pigment's absorption properties, not unlike the blue crystals in the starred ceiling of Giotto's Arena Chapel, which absorb color in white light, leaving only blue to be reflected to us. The blue sky in Wyoming absorbs nothing, but scatters the blue of sunlight down to us, not unlike the newborn eyes of a baby. In sum, a baby's blue eyes are scattered light. Paul Newman's true blue eyes are absorbed light. My stories seek blue, duplicitous truths, which nevertheless ring true. In the words of my former teacher, Jim Clifford, if we are condemned to tell stories we cannot control, may we not at least tell stories that we believe to be true. True as Coventry blue, a reference to the blue cloth and blue thread made at Coventry, noted for its permanent dye. I am a male satin bowerbird. As a connoisseur of blue, like the collectomaniac box artist Joseph Cornell, a magpie for blue, I perform my text like the artistically determined male satin bowerbird. Australia's male satin bowerbird is famous for constructing and decorating richly decorated bowers, even with interiors painted blue. Birds of this species have been observed painting with blueberry juice using crude brushes made of sticks and moss. The blue objects are collected to bring the female bird in. The older and more experienced the male, the better and more beautiful the blue bower. These bowers are bachelor pads for mating. They are not nests for a family. Once copulation has taken place, the female is on her way to a lifelong life of single parenthood. This is just an old photograph of one blue bower. Not that long ago, an ornithologist observed this in just one bower. This is true now. 75 blue plastic items, including tops from ballpoint pens, plastic pegs, bottle tops, a toothbrush, and parts of broken toys, together with 15 blue-edged feathers, 10 dried snail shells, several pieces of fawn-colored twine, and 2 blue marbles. 4 long strands of blue were so placed as to lead into and through the avenue, the center of the bower, which is open on both ends. Also decorating the platform, the inside floor of the bower, were blue and cream green flowers and other perishable items, which were replaced during the breeding season. Small blue ornaments, including flowers, were scattered along the floor of the bower avenue. In 1865, Dante Gabriel Rossetti painted his beloved Fanny Cornforth in a blue bower. The ink that I use is the blue blood of the swan that blossoms and blooms into blues within blues, including Eve Klein's blue anthropometries, Gainsborough's Blue Boy, and the copy editor's blue pencil, the blue nose of morality, blue movies, blue stockings, examination booklets, and cheese. My ink bleeds the ice blue of glaciers, the struggle of blue-collar workers, the authority of blue coats, the snobbery of aristocratic blue blood, the incomprehensible violence of the blues of the Aryan race of the Nazi regime, the struggles of the blue man of the 13th and 14th centuries, who today would be called a black man, the beauty of the scattered light of the sea and the sky, the light that got lost, the crystalline intensity of the filtered blue of the Virgin's lapis lazuli cloak in Piero della Francesca's Madonna del Porto. The optimism of the blue of the aster, the iris in the hands of Vincent van Gogh, the pursuit of Novalis' blue morning flower, and the air a fist has bruised. Sometimes it seems that everything is blue. In 1972, the Apollo 17 astronauts took a photograph of the Earth with the sun behind them. Floating in a black space, the Earth appeared as a blue marble, and they named it as such. Blue eggs and indigo mushrooms. Blue skin is the color of death, yet the blue of Vishnu's skin is the optimistic color of heavenly infinite life. Here in this 18th century painting from Jaipur, the Indian city at the center of Rajasthan, which is sometimes called the Blue City because of the locals' penchant for painting their buildings with indigo. The Hindu god Vishnu is cradled in his multi-headed serpent vehicle bed. He is resting on his snaky shisha. His indigo face with its pointy chin and sweet small smile is comforting. He is asleep in a silvery ocean of milk. When he awakes, the whole cycle of creation begins, not unlike the metamorphosis of the butterfly. Black and blue make indigo, a color with a most unpleasant and violent history. Indeed, in 1789, the French colony of which is now Haiti and San Domingo, had some 1,800 slave plantations in its western province alone. Not sugar, as is often assumed, but indigo was the chief export for this colony. In the words of Michael Tausig, color bequeathed color, a paradox riddled with pain. To make indigo, animal or human urine was used as an alkali mixed with an already potent-smelling vat of crushed indigo steeped in water. As Tausig notes on the inescapable seepage of both smell and color, he says, in 17th century India, indigo workers are reported as wearing masks with only the eyes exposed on account of the smell, while those close to the work drank milk every hour, this being a preservative against the subtlety of the indigo. The workers would spit blue for some time after work. An egg placed near a person working an indigo vat would, at the end of one day, be found to be altogether blue inside, blue food. No doubt chemistry can explain this diabolic penetrative power of blueness, but can it explain the chill or the unseemly mix of metaphors, the mask, the eyes, the blue spit, and the blue egg? What medley of history and horror, science and poetry is hereby made manifest? Indigo and milk. The historically venomous combination brings to mind this mushroom, the indigo milkcap, one of the few naturally blue foods. Unlike the horrid indigo egg, this with blue inside and out. Like all mushrooms, this particular kind of mushroom, when bruised or scratched, this fungus cries tears of indigo milk. It is difficult to believe that the indigo milkcap is edible. Some even say delicious. A thing of beauty is a guilt forever. Blues are minuscule, mournful knots of ink condensed, saved, savored, and rationed in a letter by Aaron Nemirovsky that we now know. So I'm going to start again. Blues are minuscule, mournful knots of ink, condensed, saved, savored, and rationed in letters by Aaron Nemirovsky that we now know as Suite Française, which documents evils of the Vichy regime. Her daughter Denise did not know that this journal that you're looking at was a manuscript for a book. She thought it was a painful private diary. As a Jewish girl in hiding on the run with her sister and governess, she had been told to hide her nose, was given a false name, and was given the choice of taking her doll or the manuscript. The doll was left behind, but it was years before she could open the book. She was unable to bear her mother's words of just before the arrest, just before Auschwitz. So the fat book filled with blue was stashed away in a suitcase, darkly hidden. For a long time, the tiny heartbeats of blue remained unheard. It was not until Denise's Paris house was flooded that the suitcase was opened up. Nemirovsky's tangled blue knots of letters were nearly drowned. But luckily, under a magnifying glass, they were brought to rhyming in the light. It took 20 years. Nemirovsky's story, written in the smallest possible script to save ink, which was as precious as that wartime sugar and milk on carefully rationed paper, was not a journal. It spoke a novel, Morning Glory. She placed a creamy earthenware jug of forget-me-nots on the table. Between its pages, Nemirovsky tellingly misquotes Keats' 1818 poem, writing that not a thing of beauty is a joy forever, but rather a thing of beauty is a guilt forever. The book's English translator did not correct this error. This blue mistake is a poignant reminder that the book was written in the depths of the French countryside with a sense of urgent foreboding and nothing but her memory as a source. Blue is for victory. The Nazis did not truly succeed in killing Aaron Nemirovsky. I close my eyes and I remember a really blue time from my childhood. I am remembering the blue eyes of a fawn. My family was vacationing in the summer in the Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming, where lakes and ponds and even the nearby thermal pools at Yellowstone National Park are like blue eyes staring at the blue sky. I have seen such eyes of the earth in California, North Carolina, New Zealand, and England. Here is a frozen one from Wales. As photographed by Helen Sear in January 2011, about what she writes of moving one foot gingerly after the other towards the center of your eye. I was with my mother when suddenly out of the blue, a photographer weighed down with equipment appeared. He asked us if we wanted to see a fawn that had been left alone while its mother had gone to look for food. Mysteriously and uncharacteristically for my mother, we quickly agreed to follow this unknown man who looked a little dangerous to me. And as if in a fairy tale, we came upon one of the most beautiful things that I have ever seen in my entire life. A fawn so young that its soft fur appeared moist. Its white spots looked magical and royal, inversions of the ermine trim of the fairy tale's king's robe. Tiny blue forget-me-not flowers were flourishing around this beautiful thing, curled up upon itself in perfect sleep, rocking to the rhythm of its heart and lungs. But were the flowers really there, I wonder? Don't touch, the photographer whispered to me. The fawn's eyes were shut off from the world by a pair of soft, brown, almond-shaped curtains. I could not see its eyes, but I remember them as blue. My memory is cast in the blue of the wide-open skies of Wyoming, the delicate flower, and the fawn's unseen eyes. My memory is blue at its edges and in its depths. The fawn's eye from the this fawn's eye, that's my blue memory, photo by Miro. This fawn's eye from the taxidermist is in my mind's eye, the ideal photo in Moreau's sense of the term, of the day that I remember as so blue. Photo, this is the color of my dreams, blue. Undoubtedly, I have exaggerated the blueness of my memory in my blue-prone memory bank. My memory of the sleeping fawn is in some way too blue, excess. This fawn's eye, luminous, blue-gray, a strange little gift from a student given to me long ago, which I kept on my desk when I lived under the famous blue skies of North Carolina, which I carried with me across the sometimes blue Atlantic, and now stares back at me under the gray, hardly ever blue skies of England, has become a fetish for me. I thought it was because it held on to the color of a particular memory from my childhood, that of the eyes of a fawn never seen. But now, in it, I see the eyes of my mother, luminous blue-gray, which have, because of illness and age, forgotten me, have even forgotten herself. What remains is not she. She is now nearly emptied of life. Her once sky-blue eyes are clouded. The fawn's eye stares at me and sees nothing. I think of her. I do it as an exercise. I hold my mother's weak but strongly gnarled hand long past its bloom. Overtouched by sun, wind, soap, cold age, it is spotted and withered, but very soft. Her desperate, enlarged blue veins, like stems of old roses, are just under the surface of withered, petal-thin skin. Inside my head is a picture of the girl she once was, a girl I never knew, the girl as Flower in Novalis's blue fairy tale, Henry von Ofterdingen. Her face was like a lily inclined towards the rising sun, and from her slender white neck, the blue veins clung around her tender cheeks and gentle curves. My mother's veins are too loud echoes of her once thin girl veins. My mother is lodged in me like a knife, and yet I am beginning to forget her. Already the image of her that I hold in my head is fraying like bits of pigment. Flakes of memory's gold leaf are chipping off. My memory is beginning to flake like the decorative gold band painted on the Virgin's blue headdress on Pedro de Mina's polychromed The Virgin of Sorrows from 1673. Likewise, my mother's glass tears are also long gone. My mother no longer cries. I'm not sure she can, but one can sense the stains of where my mother's real tears once were, just as one can see the marks of where the glass tears once were on Mina's The Virgin of Sorrows. Blue is the eye of the fawn, the iris of my mother. That fawn's eye that I never saw, but I remember blue, made a home for itself inside me, like Joseph Cornell's ultramarine marble that he has fit snug into the center of the body of a book entitled Rosalba. My mother is swallowed and preserved. She is an untranslated and untranslatable trauma. How does one mourn someone still alive yet who is not of this world? How does one impossibly mourn? In other words, how does one mourn without end, without forgetting? One hues it blue. Through age and time, my mother has become a little girl, and I have become old. Roles are inversed, but I want to inverse it again. I eat as a child. I remedy my oral and emotional vacancy by eating my mother. I eat blue, I eat my mother alive in order to bury her within myself. Swallowed and preserved, inexpressible mourning erects a tomb inside me, a concept I have come to understand through the mourning mouth work of psychoanalysts Nicholas Abraham and Maria Torek. Psychoanalysis meets the fairy tale. I become the witch wanting to eat Hansel, the wolf wanting to eat Little Red Riding Hood, the wicked queen wanting to eat Snow White's lungs and liver. I invert the famed line, my father, he ate me, from Grimm's juniper tree, into my mother, I ate her. Through the work of Carl Abraham, I understand that I have an oral fixation. I understand, like Abraham's patient, that loving somebody is exactly the same as the idea of eating something good. I consume like a descendant of the oral stage. I swallow my mother, skin, hair, clothes, and all. I swallow her, not as she is now, but as she once was. My mother is swallowed inside me, just as I was inside her. To eat my blue mother is to eat like a child, to cheat death, to eat death. Blue blossoms and blooms into blooms within blue. I am under my mother as sky. I am bowered by the virgin's cloak and Zurbaran's virgin of mercy. I am under a blue sky, near a blue lake, staring at the closed blue eyes of a fawn, circled with forget-me-nots. A blue lollipop. In Kieslowski's 1993 film Blue, Julie makes corrections, blue notes in blue pen upon the black notes of her late husband's musical score. The blue ink stains her fingers like blood. Julie, like all 7 of the characters in Kieslowski's trilogy of 3 films, Blue, Red, White, turns out to be the only survivor of a ferry accident. They did not drown in the blue sea, but they are all dark and wear the polar blue bruised underwater look. God made the sea to look through the window. Driving, driving, living, living. A young daughter who lives in the blue room at home is dreamy, is holding the silver and blue wrapper of a lollipop recently devoured out of the window. The wrapper flashes as a greeting, but we sense it as goodbye to the world. There's something in the air. It catches small bits of light and flashes. It is luminescent despite the day's gray-blue sky. Its crackling sound and its silver blue color are satisfying. As Julia Kristeva notes, color is bodily, it is erotic. It comes from the body like voice. Anna lets go of the wrapper. Anna and her father will soon be dead. A car accident. We hear the sound of the crash before we see anything. The bad luck of life. The mother will survive. The bad luck of life. The mother cannot survive because she cannot mourn. Not long after this tragedy, the mother returns to the home where she had once lived happily with her husband and daughter. It is night. Almost everything has been cleared out of the house. She empties her handbag on the bare mattress and finds, by chance, another one of those blue lollipops. She had been saving it for her daughter, but that daughter is dead, so she eats it herself. But unlike Proust's homey, nostalgic Madeleine, which gives way to all of his boyhood memories, from which he takes only a few nibbles, crumbs really, softly soaked in lime blossom tisane, Julie eats and crunches the blue lollipop with a ferocious tenderness. She is ravenous and angry. For children, flavors are often inseparable from the artificial colors they love. At the snow cone stand, you can ask a child what flavor they want, and they will reply red or blue. Blue is a favorite flavor of youth. The list of natural blue foods is brief and includes most obviously blueberries, but also the blue potato, plums, but aren't they more black and purple than blue? Blue corn, the blue milk-oozing indigo milk-cap mushroom, and blue cheese, which is mold and generally only liked by adults. As Francesca Woodman writes, tomorrow they might have blueberry muffins for breakfast, so buy yourself a blue velvet cape today. She wrote that in her journal at age 17. A photographer, Woodman is most famous for her blurry, soft-focus, surreal photographs of herself and her girlfriends, mostly nude, or in an advanced stage of undress. But Woodman also made cyan photographs, blueprint photographs, diazotypes, like her gorgeous life-size picture you see here. Here, her body is fully draped in folds. It is part marble carving, part Fortuny dress, part Proustian paper roll. The tone is violet blue. Her eyes and her mouth are shielded by her own lovely youthful arms. She writes, I think about food a good deal of the time, in her adolescent journal. And she continues, pastries are my favorite art form, and I make beautiful blackberry slump. Nothing more relaxing than settling down with a good cookbook and the words. I'm still thinking about some sweet, narrow plums I ate in Italy last summer, known as nun's thighs. In her 1980 diazotype, Girl with Weed, we are privy to succulent thighs like blue plums. When we are children, Proust tells us, we try to find the moon and the stars in books. We are enraptured when the moon is a glistening luminary and are disappointed by it when it is compared to a cheese. Cheese seems vulgar to us, and the moon appears divine. Blue snow cones, blue cotton candy, also called Papa's beard or candy floss, blue ice cream, often in bubblegum flavor, or blue jello, are all made for the taste of the child only. Kieslowski's Julie eats childhood, a flavor walled off in blue, like her daughter's now empty azure bedroom. She swallows her daughter Anna. Julie's eating of the blue lollipop is an eating of Anna in order to bury her within herself, just as I imagined the eating of my own mother when reflecting on childhood memories. When the mother weans her infant, language grows out of the child's empty mouth. Hence the transition from a mouth filled with a breast to a mouth filled with words occurs by virtue of the intervening experiences of the empty mouth. You learn to talk when your mouth is no longer full. Emptiness gives way to desire and language. But what happens when the child no longer is a mouth for the mother to feed, when the child no longer presents her with an empty mouth for her to coax words out of, to turn her now gone milk into speech? Julie remedies this oral vacancy left by Anna by eating her child. Julie eats the child as food, swallows her whole in order to entomb her. Before eating the blue lollipop that looks like a blue tongue, like the tongue of the dead, Julie sleeps with her late husband's friend. In an echo of Carl Abraham's discussion of the oral stage, Julie's sexuality is coupled with her cannibalistic impulses. Just as I imagined swallowing my mother blue so as to remedy the vacancy in my heart, Julie opens her mouth to her daughter's closed mouth. Julie swallows Anna, skin, hair, clothes, and all. Just as I open my mouth to the closed mouth of my mother as child, that is, my mother as my little girl, who has forgotten me, who has forgotten how to eat, who has forgotten how to talk. Julie claims she does not want to hold on to anything. But after swallowing Anna's lollipop, after making this blue tomb for her daughter inside herself, she decides to take with her the curious mobile composed of blue glass crystals that once hung below the light of her daughter's blue bedroom. For a while, she keeps it entombed in a cardboard box. She eventually lets it out, lets it shine in her new apartment. The flautist on the street says to Julie, "You gotta hold on to something." What better way is there than to eat that something, that object, that person? Julie turns her mouth, emptied by the death of her child, into something productive. There is eventually the completion of the unfinished musical score, and even the nurturance of her late husband's child, conceived with his mistress. Here, the image of the pregnant mistress is a repeat of Julie, metaphorically swollen with the swallowing of Anna, or even the cat that Julie borrowed so that it would eat the nest of baby mice in her apartment. The womb and tomb nest within one another. Anna's blue mobile is the same color and texture as Roger Heihorn's, H-I-O-R-N-S. You want to write this artist's name down if you don't know him. 2008 installation of copper sulfate crystals writ large entitled Seizure. For this remarkable project, Heihorns took a tiny, condemned, depressing, too small, worn-out public housing flat near the Elephant and Castle in South London and turned its interior into a sparkling blue jewel, a blue grotto. The effect of walking into the semi-darkness of the small habitat is to be struck again by Julia Kristeva's Padua's Blue, only in London in the 21st century. Heihorns is a tiny chapel or palace covered with thousands upon thousands of sapphires, a meeting between the Arena Chapel and St. Mark's Basilica, writ small and cheap. The blue sparkle was achieved by flooding the interior of the flat with 75,000 liters of copper sulfate solution. It did not take long for the bathtub that you're looking at here, the walls, the floor, and the ceiling to be taken over by a mesmerizing and menacing growth of gorgeous crystals. Nor did it take long for the pilgrims of blue to make the journey to 157 Harper Road in London. In keeping with the mythology of blue, seizure is as foreboding as it is beautiful. Likewise, the liquid pools of milky turquoise approach the abject. Heihorn's public housing palace, bejeweled with the grandeur, as well as the ill-omened fragments and liquidy rank of Venice, is today's equivalent of painting with light, not from lapis lazuli crystals, but from copper sulfite crystals. Anna's mobile, like Heihorn's copper sulfate crystals, the child's science experiment of growing crystals grown out of control, grows and multiplies throughout the film. Born from the sugary shards of her daughter's blue sucker, the mobile operates as the source, not unlike those paintings of the same name by Ingres and Courbet. The mobile crystallizes into the blue light that comes when Julie hears music. The mobile crystallizes into the blue pills that Julie fails to swallow in a suicide attempt. The mobile crystallizes into Julie's blue notes written with a blue pen on her late husband's score that is kept in a blue folder along with pictures of his mistress. The mobile crystallizes into the blue swimming pool that Julie swims in at night. The mobile crystallizes into the blue television images of bungee jumping on a program that her mother with Alzheimer's has on but does not see. In a brilliant stroke of casting, Julia's mother, Julie's mother, who no longer remembers anything, who has forgotten her daughter, is played by Emmanuel Riva, the star of Hiroshima Mon Amour from 1959, and the famed character of the film by Alan Rene and Marguerite Duras, who is so afraid of forgetting. In a sense, then, Julie, like me, also eats her mother blue. She is swallowed inside her, just as she was once inside her mother, just as Anna was once inside her. From blue to blue, such crystals of nucleic blue beauty, blue pain, blue memory, blue forgetting, blue childhood, blue old age, blue loss, blue sex, blue candy, blue music are fragments of the truth which attract to themselves like a magnet an inkling of the unknown. Okay, just one little more taste in conclusion. Utopia is a nowhere island, yet we keep trying to get there. It is always unfinished. Frederick Jameson likens utopia's already unfinished essence with the pleasures of construction found in the garage workshop of the home mechanic erector sets of Lego, of bricolading and cobbling together things of all kinds. In a never-ending variation, fed by new ideas and information, these utopian constructions convey the spirit of non-alienated labor and production. I call that making art. Jameson's utopias without an end in sight are hopeful in that which Roland Barthes identifies as radical, successful idleness, or good laziness. I'm putting in a plug for laziness here at the end. In Roland Barthes' inspiring interview entitled Dare to be Lazy, Barthes bricolates unknitting. It's my boyfriend again, Roland Barthes. Perhaps the most unconventional and thus the most literally scandalous thing I ever saw in my life, scandalous for the people watching, not for me, was a young man seated in a subway car in Paris who pulled some knitting out of his bag and openly began to knit. Everyone felt scandalized, but no one said anything. Now, knitting is the perfect example of a manual activity that is minimal, gratuitous, without finality, but that still represents a beautiful and successful idleness. Francis Alice took it one step further with this work of art, his fairy tale action. As he walked through Stockholm while unraveling behind him the blue sweater that he was wearing to make a trail not of pebbles or breadcrumbs, but of yarn. Alice spins his own yarn on the action when he comments that in Stockholm, once the walk was done and the sweater unraveled, I retraced my steps to document the journey, following the long blue thread on the street and in the park. Midway back, I ran into this old lady who was patiently rolling a blue yarn under her arm, carefully gathering up the wool of my unraveled sweater, maybe to knit a similar one at home. Like blue mythologies, Alice is a man who knits and unknits out of the blue. Thank you.